is Robert Stearns. Hey, I want to thank you for tuning in. I really believe that learning is one of the greatest joys in life. And one of the greatest ways to learn is simply to have meaningful conversations, both with those who come from a similar background as yours, as well as those whose background might be very different. So my hope is that as we connect and converse with leaders from all around the world, that we will learn and grow together. If you're new with us, hit the subscribe button and we'll deliver the new episodes to you right away. So wherever you are, on a run, in the car, at the kitchen table with some coffee, welcome to the conversation. Hey friends, what is up? Listen, write it down, write down the date, whatever today's date is, because for the first time in history, Bishop and the Rabbi has started early. I don't know what my production team was thinking. They're up in Buffalo. I'm at the Jersey Shore, which they made into a TV program, but thankfully I'm not on it. But we were in pre-production and all of a sudden, boom, somebody started the countdown early. I know who that somebody was, but they shall remain unnamed. I will not throw them under the bus, but this is the first time ever we've started early. Very, very exciting. What does it mean? Is it prophetic? I don't think so. I just think we started early. How is everybody doing? Laverne has already shared the broadcast. Laverne, you're an overachiever. I'll tell you that. You're an overachiever, Laverne. Hello, Daniela in New York. You're back from Germany. Hey, Mom. Love you very much, Mom. Miss you. My friend David Krause, who does the beautiful Shabbat every week there in Pennsylvania. Carol is with us. June is with us from Bolingbrook. Terry from Columbus, what's up? Denise from Kenmore, how are you? Amy in Baltimore. Amy, God bless you. Hi, Terry, God bless you. And go ahead, sign in, everybody. Give us your name and where you're watching from. And hit the share button. Need you to hit the share button just as quick as you can because we started early. So we're going to have to get people online. So hit that for us. Hi, Ruth. It was great to see Ruth at Blue Mountain and great to be with you at the Partners Lunch. We appreciate all of your prayers and support, Ruth. You're such a blessing to this ministry. Carol, Nehemiah is going to take longer than 52 days, if you get the reference. Hey, Mike Knoll, God bless you. Hey, Elle, God bless you. Jacqueline, God bless you. You know, I have found that it's difficult to parent 3 teenage boys at the Jersey Shore and write a book simultaneously. Those are hard things to do together. And so we have not been able, I've made a little progress, but not what I thought, but it's all good. It'll be done soon enough. And we're excited about it. Folks, hit the share button for me right now. I hope, obviously, we're not in Buffalo. And if my team can please, I'm going to text you guys because I had Rabbi, but now I don't see him. So I'm going to just text them just to make sure. Now, that doesn't mean, Buffalo, that I want you to go ahead and put them on, but just text me back, Buffalo. Okay, I just texted you. Who else is on? Sydney Cohen, God bless you. Sid and Ruth, love you all so much. Hit the share button, folks. Ashley, can you just follow along there? Yeah, because I normally, he shows up here and he's not there. Hey, Katie, Texas is here. Okay, great. Yep, they're telling me Rabbi's ready. It's a little bit of a different setup tonight since we're not in studio. Okay. Yes, we had an incredible week at Blue Mountain Christian Retreat. We were live with Rabbi Kenneth Brander. If you were live there with us, type in I was live at Blue Mountain. We had a great week at Blue Mountain, by the way. My goodness, you guys, those of you at Blue Mountain, just what about the worship services on Friday and Saturday night, right? I mean, it was just incredible services Friday and Saturday night. There's Charlie Cassisi and Lynn. God bless you. So it was amazing at Blue Mountain, and so many great things coming up. Buffalo celebrates Israel. Delaware, Maryland, Virginia celebrate Israel. Boston celebrates Israel. New Holland, Pennsylvania is there. Mark Passarella says it was live. It was, I think, we've been in Blue Mountain for 20 years. It may have been the best week. It might have been the best week at Blue Mountain. You really need to get there next year if you can. Hit the share button, everybody, because we're about to go live to Beverly Hills in just one moment. But before we do, I'm just trying to think of any quick announcements. Keep praying. You know, they've changed again the COVID restrictions in Israel. So we're praying for our team. We're supposed to have a team leaving next week. We're going to see if they still can go or not. But pray for us about that. And there's other, Yassel is starting tomorrow. Yassel is our young adults special week. We have, guys, listen to this. We have 52 young people signed up for Yassel. Don't tell me that young people in America are not spiritually hungry, that they're not longing for authentic community, longing for authentic connection. We have 52 young people signed up for Yassel starting tomorrow. I will be hosting them at my home on Sunday at 4 p.m. So pray for me. And Laverne, that's a great reminder. Laverne is hitting it out of the park tonight. Yes, we are resuming Torah Tuesdays on the 17th. So look forward for that. All right, I hope you've hit the share button, everybody, because we did start early. And so I'm hoping we didn't miss anybody in that. Hit the share button, hit the subscribe button on YouTube, and we are ready to go. So we're going live right now to the one and only, the incomparable, the top of the list. He is back for his third visit to Rabbi Pini Dunner. My brother, good evening, sir.
How are you? How is Jersey Shore?
You know what? It's amazing. It is. We're having a great week. The weather has been nice. And Rabbi, we have had people all week so excited. You are the first rabbi, because you always excel everyone. You're the first rabbi who's made it back for your third visit. We have several.
I feel honored.
We're several.
I feel greatly honored. Thank you.
We've got several.
I welcome all my long-standing friends in your ministry, both online and offline, and of course your team in Buffalo, who work feverishly in the background to make us all look good. I'm so grateful for that. And of course, here we have Carly in Beverly Hills, who's doing everything she can to make sure that everything is running smoothly. But once again, I'm so happy to be with you, Bishop Stearns, Robert. It's really lovely. And Rabbi, it's important for us to get together and to share brotherhood. Shevet Achim Gam Yachad.
Rabbi, people are commenting on your set. They're saying how fantastic, in the comments, they're saying how fantastic. So I don't know, is that one of those pre-made sets in the background? Or
no, these are real books. This is a Mishnayot. It's actually a real book. And I studied it. You can see there's a page marker here. These are books that I study. It just happens to be that with clever lighting, they look very special, but it's not scenery from a Hollywood set.
Well, even though you're close to Hollywood, I'll tell you what, it looks fantastic, and people here are commenting on your set. And Rabbi, I have to tell you, you get in trouble when you choose favorites, but you have a big fan club in the evangelical community. Rabbi, we wanted to tell you, when we were at Blue Mountain last week, we had the privilege of hosting for the very first time, and I'm wondering if you know him, at least by reputation, but we had Rabbi Kenneth Brander with us, who has taken over Or Torah Stone from Rabbi Shlomo Riskin. He is the successor to Rabbi Riskin. And it was his very first experience with Eagle's Wings. We had hundreds of people in the room. He came in live from Jerusalem, and he had a wonderful time. Do you know him or know him by reputation?
I know him very well. The first time I met him, he was the rabbi of Palm Beach, Florida, Boca Raton, actually.
That's right. Yeah.
And at that time, there was some discussion as to whether I'd become a rabbi in that location.
Oh.
I went to visit him, and he embraced us and welcomed us. In the end, we didn't move to Palm Beach. He then moved to Yeshiva University, where he was active for a number of years in the Center for the Jewish Future that's based at Yeshiva University in New York. And he has subsequently moved to the Katamont neighborhood of Jerusalem, where he has taken over the direction of the Torah Stone Yeshiva, which of course was founded by our dear friend Rabbi Riskin. And I've seen him several times because I stay with a friend in Katamon who lives directly opposite the same synagogue where Rabbi Brander prays. And we've seen each other there on several occasions. But now we are regularly in touch because he will be joining us in the middle of November as our guest scholar in residence, in person, flying in from Israel. He's going to be coming to Beverly Hills Synagogue as our guest speaker for the weekend. So yes, I do know him, and you're very privileged to have him as a part of the team of those who look forward to the messianic arrival through the ingathering of Jews from the exile and the cooperation of Gentile faithful to make sure that all the prophecies do come to light.
Well, it was wonderful to meet him, and I think he felt very encouraged by the event because we were at that moment live at Blue Mountain, so we had a few hundred people in the auditorium, and I think he was a little overwhelmed. So I'm glad that he is in partnership with you, and so all of our partnerships together should only continue to grow stronger as we press in to this moment of divine providence that is upon us. And speaking of the future, an important part of the future is your wonderful children, including Meir, who is serving in the IDF in the middle of COVID, in the middle of, not only COVID, by the way, in the middle of Hamas's reign of terror of several months ago. Your son left the posh comfort of Beverly Hills and gave you such nachas, gave you such pride and such joy that of his own volition, he moved to Israel at the age of, you'll fill it in, 19, 20, whatever he was.
18,
makes the decision and goes into one of the highest units, the most exalted and powerful units within the IDF, and has been serving there. And so many of us have been praying for Meir, either daily or weekly. Please give us the update on how Meir is doing.
Well, there's a lot to tell you. He is, first of all, in active duty, and we don't know exactly where he is serving currently. We know that there are exercises on the northern border because of a sudden upsurge in activity from Hezbollah terrorists on the Lebanese side of the northern border of Israel. I don't know if you read in the newspapers or online that there have been missiles fired from across the northern border to a place called Kiryat Shmona, where they landed. It happens to be that just a few weeks ago, just over a month ago, I went together with Sabine and our youngest son, Uri, because we went to celebrate his final ceremony. It's called the Tekes ceremony. It's the Hebrew word for ceremony, Tekes, where he gets his beret, his red beret, because he is part of the Chetz unit of the paratroopers in the IDF. And we went to the ceremony. It was a very moving ceremony where a few hundred soldiers received their beret and all the families come together. And it's so warm and so deep and so special to see these young Jewish warriors ready to face off against those who would do anything to harm Israel. And they want to protect the Jewish people. And I feel protected in Beverly Hills I feel protected in Los Angeles by the soldiers who defend the state of Israel. And now one of them is my own son, is our own son, Meir, who is standing there on the front line. And during the recent Gaza war, he was there doing what he needed to do. And in every single situation, he is directly involved in protecting the state of Israel, the land of Israel, and the people of Israel. And we couldn't be more proud of his achievements and his deep and devoted faith.
And I've been personal witness to the faith of all of your children. I've had the blessing of having Shabbat together in your home on several occasions, and
we look forward to many more.
Well, the spiritual energy when your family sings together, when your family prays together, I will never forget the very first time that I experienced it. It was at a reception, one of the Sheva Brachot of a wedding of one of your children. Because you have, is it 6 children, Rabbi?
I have 6. We have 6 children. Our 2 oldest daughters are married. And I think you came to a Sheva Brachot in Los Angeles for our oldest, Shoshana.
Right.
And it was a very special, quite intimate Sheva Brachot at our home on Friday night. And we were delighted that you were a part of it. And you, I'm not sure if there was one in our home and one in the shul. You may have been to both.
Yes, because I've been to both weddings, because I also made the wedding of your other daughter in New York.
Yes.
But there's this beautiful tradition, everybody. I wish you could experience it. But Rabbi Dunner, by the way, who himself has a beautiful voice and is very skilled on guitar. He really has something of Shlomo Karlebach's spirit on him. And Rabbi Dunner will just begin to tap the table and he'll begin to hum under his breath. And it's like on cue. His family are like the Von Trapp family singers from Sound of Music. They'll all begin to hum along and they'll kind of begin to sway with the music. And all of a sudden, there is this, chorus that arises that's absolutely beautiful. It's spectacular to experience. And I just pray that we can experience more and more, Rabbi, joy. And I want to say 2 things to what you just said. Number one, we have to pause and reflect that for the first time in 2,000 years of history, we can speak about Jewish warriors. Because for 2,000 years, there was no Israeli army, there was no Israeli militia, there was no Jewish militia. And so Jews were victimized for centuries. And so obviously we can use the weapon of our mind, we can use the weapon of the pen, there's the weapon of prayer. These are all weapons that God gives us, but it is something that in this moment, there is a strong Israeli army. The Israeli Defense Forces, aptly named the Israeli Defense Forces, because Israel is never the aggressor. Israel is never the territorial expansionist. They are simply trying to defend their homeland. But the second reflection I would make is that I, as a non-Jew, I, as an American, feel safer because Meir is serving in the Israeli army, because Israel stands on the front lines of the battle of Western civilization against totalitarianism and theocratic fascism practiced by Iran and other militant Islamic theocracies. And so it is not only the Jewish people who can feel safer because of the army of Israel, but it is also all freedom lovers everywhere can feel safer that this moral, ethical army, the IDF, is strong and in existence in our day.
There's an important point that I want to raise because, things have evolved, as you know, over the past few years, and Israel has made peace with 4 Muslim nations over the past few years in what's known as the Abraham Accords. And I think that what we're seeing is a softening of the approach of some of the Islamic countries, some of whom have openly declared their friendship with the Jewish people and with Israel, and some of whom have not yet done so, but privately behind closed doors are acknowledging the fact that Israel is not an enemy of Islam, but a friend of all people, of monotheistic faith, and in fact of all faithful people who want to observe the laws of God. And they have made peace with Israel, and Israel is a peace-seeking country. It's there enshrined in its Declaration of Independence. There is no cause for war between the Jewish nation and any other nation in the world. So that's the very first point I want to make. In fact, later on this year, at the end of October, and hopefully all is well with the various travel restrictions that keep on springing into place and then going back out of place. But we are going to be on a mission to Dubai, which is in the United Arab Emirates, where we're going to be meeting with friends of Israel. There's now a thriving and growing Jewish community in the United Arab Emirates. They've built a beautiful synagogue, and they are welcoming Jewish delegations, and they want to express their love and sympathy for Israel and for the Zionist cause. And that is just incredible. It's an open miracle that we've seen this come about. If you would have even said 5 years ago that this was a possibility, it's not a possibility. And from there, we're going to be going to Israel. We're going to be staying at the King David Hotel, and we're going to be spending Shabbat with David Friedman, who was the US ambassador who facilitated this incredible achievement, the peace between Arab nations and the State of Israel. And he was, of course, part of this, the last administration's attempt to create a comprehensive peace plan between Israel and the Palestinians. And unfortunately, the Palestinians were not willing to compromise on any of their very, very strong rejectionist stances vis-a-vis peace with Israel. But nevertheless, a comprehensive peace plan. He will be joining us, and we'll also be spending time with our dear friend, President Isaac Herzog, Bougie Herzog, who's just been elected president. He has been a long-standing friend of mine personally, and also of the Jewish communities around the diaspora as head of the Jewish Agency over the past 3 years, and will be leading our delegation to the Beit HaNassi, the president's house in Jerusalem, so that we can spend time with the president of Israel and look forward to a future which is more peaceful and of greater tranquility for the Middle East and for the Jewish people, and of course for all the supporters of the State of Israel. So that's the first point I wanted to make. The second point is about the Jewish warrior. You know, I just want to expand on what you said. We read in the Talmud, we just unfortunately commemorated once again the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash, Tisha B'Av, and I'm sure on one or two of your programs of the bishop and the rabbi, you spoke about that particular period in history, and you see how vulnerable the Jewish people were and how unable they were to stand up to their enemies, first of all because of internal fighting, and second of all because of the might of the Roman Empire that was pitted against them. And for the subsequent almost 2,000 years, wherever we were, people made fun of the Jewish people, saying, "You're a stateless people, you're a useless people, who are you? You're there to remind us of your vulnerability and how God abandoned you."
Right.
That was the state of the Jewish people for almost 2,000 years. But somehow, and it's miraculous, during the 19th century, there was a rebirth of the Jewish national feeling, of this feeling that we're no longer going to be the victims, and we're not going to wait for God to bring about the miracle. We will be there, as it were, hand in hand, arm in arm, shoulder to shoulder with God, bringing that miracle about. We're going to turn the desert into grassland, pasture, fields, and orchards, as the prophecy stated. We're going to go back to the land of Israel. We're going to turn it into a land that's flowing with milk and honey. And that prophecy has come true. And not only do the Jewish people inhabit the land of their heritage and the land of the Bible, the land of Israel, but they also have an army. We have warriors to protect ourselves. And guess what? I feel a lot better in a world full of anti-Semites, in a world where at the drop of a hat, everybody points the finger at Jewish communities and does worse, attacks Jews. Even here in Los Angeles, we had attacks against Jewish community members not far from where I live. And of course, across the United States and in the UK, where I come from, there was terrible anti-Semitic attacks. You know what? I feel much better knowing that in the face of anti-Semitism, I have a country to go to.
Yes.
and I have an army that can defend the Jewish people, rather than my grandparents and great-grandparents who suffered the indignity of having to go through the Holocaust. And I lost all my great-grandparents, except for one set, were killed in the gas chambers of the concentration camps, and there was no army to defend them. Imagine what they would be thinking now, knowing that their descendant, Meir Duna, is a member of the crack Chetz unit of the paratroopers, the Tzanchanim of the Israel Defense Forces, the IDF. How proud they would be in the knowledge that we've come full circle and that we have the might of King David and the faith and wisdom of King Solomon.
So incredible. We definitely are in the days of the rebuilding of the Sukkot David that the prophet Amos declared would happen. It's happening in front of our eyes. Rabbi, as you mentioned, your upcoming trip to Dubai and to Jerusalem, the new rabbi of the Dubai Jewish community has been a guest on this program. Rabbi Eli Abadi is
a wonderful man,
a dear friend of mine. I'm also friends with his son, who just made Aliyah about 6 months ago, or maybe a year ago now. But Eli Abadi is a wonderful, wonderful rabbi. By the way, also a physician.
That's
so
right.
He's this unique combination.
Well, he'll be spending Shabbat with us in Dubai.
Yep.
And so the first Shabbat we will be in Dubai, and the second Shabbat will be in Jerusalem, because all roads lead to Jerusalem, to the holy city,
where David Friedman was our keynote speaker
That's
for
right.
the day of prayer for the peace of Jerusalem for us there in Israel. So all of these beautiful relationships. Rabbi, we have to get to the word tonight. We're in Deuteronomy chapter 11 through chapter 16. Everybody, Deuteronomy, Devarim, 11 through 16, chapter 11 through 16. And Rabbi, you helped me with the pronunciation. Is it Re'eh?
Re'eh. Re'eh. So
in
fact, it's fascinating because the word doesn't need to be there. I spoke about it today, and I've spoken about it many times before. See, it means look, see. In other words, take into account what's in front of your eyes. Bracha uklala, both blessing and curse. Today I wrote an article in which I described the fact that one of the most successful presidents of the United States was a man called FDR. That's how he's known. But Roosevelt was one of the most successful. He's in every poll. He's always cited as the most successful, or at least in the top 3 or top 5 most successful presidents, influential presidents of the United States. And of course, everybody is aware of the fact that he suffered from polio in 1921. He was diagnosed with polio. It crippled him, paralyzed him from the waist down. He was never able to properly support himself on his legs ever again, because his muscles had wasted away. And yet, a few years later, he reemerged, became the governor of New York, and later on, he became the president. He was elected in 1932. He died in 1945, and he presided over one of the greatest recoveries in known history, a country that was on its knees after the crash of 1929. He took America out of the Great Depression. And not only that, as a result of victory in the Second World War, the United States became a world economic and military superpower, one of the most incredible achievements of any international leader in the history of humankind. And it endures to this day. So we're well over 70 years later, and his legacy still endures. And that's a remarkable achievement. But what very few people know is that he was in Harvard University. He came from New York, but he was in Harvard University, and he wanted to become a member of one of the student clubs there, the Kellyan Club, and he was rejected. He was blackballed. There were 16 votes, and one of them was against him, and it had to be unanimous. And he was rejected. He was devastated because his father had been a member of the club, and his much more famous cousin, President Teddy Roosevelt, had been a member of the club, and he was totally devastated. In fact, Eleanor Roosevelt said about that it caused him to have a terrible inferiority complex, but it's what made him as a person. And it's possible that he was able to muster the strength to deal with the crippling polio that he suffered from as a result of this devastating blow. Even it seems quite ridiculous, but he was so upset about it. And he just, in fact, felt that there was so much prejudice against him as a New Yorker in Harvard, that even though he retained proudly his Harvard connection, he could never get over the fact that he'd been rejected. The reason I'm telling you this is that this, as it were, curse, because the bad things that happen in your life are a curse. That's what they are. And when they happen to you, you can't see past them. And yet, every curse has, on the flip side of that very same coin, a blessing, because it strengthens you. It makes you able to stand up to the tests of life. And the verse there at the beginning of Re'eh doesn't say blessing or curse. It says blessing and curse, because the curse and the blessing are really the yin and the yang of the same concept, which is whatever challenge you have in life makes you stronger as a person, makes you more resilient as a person. You're able to withstand anything that comes your way. And this tiny incident, and perhaps to us it seems tiny, of his rejection, of the snub of his fellow students at a young age, how old could he have been, 18, 19 years old, whatever he was, made him so strong as a person. And he developed this personality where everything, he could shake it all off. Nothing mattered. So that even when he got polio, he was able to withstand that, and he was able to reemerge and become one of the most incredible political leaders that the United States has ever seen. And I think that we need to see that. That's why we have this word Re'eh at the beginning of the parsha. We have the word Re'eh to tell us that we need to look at every aspect of our lives. And our lives are currently, but at all times in our lives, a roller coaster.
Right.
We have good days and we have bad days. In fact, even in one day, we can have good moments and we can have bad moments. And we have to look at all of those moments and say, what is it about this moment that I can take forward with me? And I don't want to forget it. I want to remember it. I want to retain it. I want to keep it fresh in my mind. Re'eh, I want to be able to see it so that I can see that it is a blessing and a curse, or a curse and a blessing. It's all combined. It's all part of the same process that makes me, as an individual who I am, a better person of faith in God, and a better person as a friend and as a comrade to others. That is the key element of this verse at the beginning of Parshat Re'eh.
Rabbi, I was sharing a few weeks ago at the Tabernacle where I pastor. I was sharing on this issue of gratitude, this issue of choice, this issue of how do we view the world? Do we view the world through the lenses of chaos or through the lenses of divine providence and divine order? And I brought to our attention again the work of the incredible Viktor Frankl, this Austrian psychiatrist, or psychologist rather, who was interred.
Man's search for meaning.
Yeah,
he was a Holocaust survivor who couldn't quite reconcile himself with what had happened to him, and yet he was able to analyze it incredibly and put together a cogent argument that we need to find meaning, even devastation.
And what his core takeaway from the horrors of the Holocaust, he said that anything that could be stripped away from a human being, your job, your family, your identity, your health, all of this can be stripped away. But he said, I realized that the one thing the Nazis could not take from me was my ability to choose how I responded to the circumstance. How I responded was the final freedom that I truly have. And so you're saying that in Re'eh, God is saying he's not see in the sense of visually see, he's saying perceive, understand that even in the midst of every curse, there's a blessing, there's a silver lining in that cloud. There's an opportunity in the midst of the obstacle. And it's all about, will we see it with eyes of faith? And Rabbi, I've often said that people who look with faith and gratitude see more opportunities and more things to be grateful for. People who look through eyes of victimhood and bitterness only see the negativity. So what you focus on multiplies.
It's also being able to use these moments of challenge as opportunities for growth. And I know in particular over these past 18 months or so that we've been dealing with the pandemic, and particularly because it's been such a roller coaster. Yes, there was the moment at the beginning where we were all locked down and shut away, and then we came out, and then we went back, and there was a surge, and then there was another surge, and now more recently we've all been coming out, not wearing our masks and going to wherever we want to go, and suddenly there's a new Delta variant, and now we're masked again indoors, at least here in California, and there's people fighting it and whatever it is. But what we suddenly realize is that actually, even if the Delta variant declines, there could be another variant at some point in 3 months or in 6 months that could emerge, that could once again devastate the world that we know, and reduce our activities or somehow infringe on our lives. And how are we using those challenges? I'm asked this. How are we using these challenges? And in my own personal case, I mean, your viewers have been saying they're very fond of my set, but this set that you see behind me was put together because I wasn't able to sit in proximity to my community members. And I think you did the same thing in Buffalo.
Absolutely.
Suddenly,
100%. Yep.
we had to adapt. The word of God doesn't go to sleep, and a rabbi or a bishop have to be able to communicate with those who are looking for inspiration. So suddenly we had to embrace a technological world that we are not that familiar with. We heard new words like Zoom and StreamYard and lighting and, whatever it was that we needed to do in order to present ourselves and what it is that the messages that we want to give to the audience that's out there waiting to hear it or to watch it. And I think that, that's just one little example from our own 2 lives of how we've used this moment of challenge to adapt in such a way that we've improved our own lives and the lives of so many others. But in much more little personal ways, we've used these moments of challenge. Maybe we've become closer to family members. We've been more attentive to making phone calls to people who are lonely. It can be all of the above and many more, because we understand the importance of taking a moment of challenge, taking a hurdle, and turning it into something that can improve us as people and improve the world as a whole. That's really what it means. Re'eh. You've got to see it for what it is. See it as an opportunity and then use it for that purpose. It's a bracha and a klola. It's both. The klola becomes the bracha. The curse becomes the blessing.
Now, Rabbi, one of the great things we've learned in studying with our Jewish brothers and sisters is that that in a Jewish way of approaching text, you don't have to be limited to one interpretation. You can hold several different, Hillel and Shammai are going to both, have these different interpretations, etc. And so our friend Joseph McBride from Katy, Texas, has, I think, a great question for us. I'm going to try to summarize what I think he's saying. He's saying we're talking about this blessings and cursings in terms of good things and bad things that happen to us. Because, of course, Scripture says, the rain falls on the just and the unjust. Good things happen to bad people, bad things happen to good people. But he's saying, isn't the plain reading of the text, the most obvious reading, also dealing with obedience? What is God saying here about our obedience to his law, about our need to exercise our free will, not to choose our own carnal nature, the nature of what we would call the sin nature in our parlance that comes from Adam, but to choose the ways of God, the ways of obedience over the ways of disobedience. Maybe comment on that for us for a moment, because I think Joseph's asked us a great question.
No, I don't disagree with any literal interpretation, because obviously if it makes sense, then it can mean that. And of course, God offers us choices. He offers us a choice which is a blessing and a choice which is a curse. The question is, how do we know which is which? How are we to discern what is a curse and what is a blessing? Because to us, we look at something and we perceive it as a wonderful thing. We can, because we can talk ourselves and we can rationalize anything. The human capacity for rationalizing is nothing short of incredible.
And all the parents of teenagers said a hearty amen.
Yeah, right. Isn't that correct? The opportunity for turning the bad into the good in your own mind is limitless.
Right.
I want to share with you a midrash, which I think is really wonderful. Midrash, of course, was written by those rabbis who were active at the time of the Mishnah and the time of the Talmud, at the same time as Jesus was active. He, of course, is mentioned in the Talmud as the student of one of the great rabbis of the Talmud. But their sayings are really what determine the way we observe Judaism, because they they crystallized hundreds of years. I have Josephus here in front of me. Josephus writes that the tradition of the Jews, the way we observed our laws at the time of the destruction of the Second Temple, had been accepted by the masses of Jews over many hundreds of years as the true observance of Judaism. That's what the Jewish observant, the mitzvah observance of Jews meant. And so we take the words of, as we call them, Chazal, Chachamenu, Zichronam Livracha, our sages, may their memory be a blessing. That's how we refer to them, as Chazal. And we have Talmud, which is essentially a book of Jewish law in many volumes, but it contains a lot of midrash as well. And midrash, which is exclusively commentary, it's homiletics on the Torah and on other aspects of what Christians refer to as the Old Testament, what we refer to as the Hebrew Scriptures, and Tanakh. And I want to share with you a midrash on the very topic that Joseph brought up in this question. And it's a wise man who said that he was sitting in front of two pathways, and people were coming to him and saying to him, where do these pathways lead? He said, they lead to exactly the same place, but one of them was covered in brambles and thorns at the entrance. If to go through it was quite challenging. But he said to them, don't worry, once you get through that, then the path ahead of you is smooth and the road is very easy to travel. The other one, where the opening was very smooth and very easy, and people were attracted to that one because the way they saw it was, here's the easier road to walk down. He said, don't go down that road, because at the end of the road, there's terrible brambles and thorns and your skin will get ripped. Your clothes will get torn to shreds. Don't go down that road. And he said the wise who listened to the wise man, the Midrash said, they would go through the road, they would begin on the path where the brambles and thorns were at the start of the journey, so that the end of their journey would be clear and easy. But those who were silly, those who didn't have wisdom, didn't listen to the wise man, and they went down what they perceived to be the easier road. And in the end, they had to contend with the very damaging thorns and brambles which were at the end of the path. And I think the message of the Midrash is, and I think of the verse, and by the way, this Midrash is specifically on that verse at the beginning of Re'eh. The message of the Midrash is, I had a rabbi used to tell me, there's two types of people in this world, people with problems and people who are going to have problems. We're all going to have problems. There's no life that is smooth from beginning to end. The question is, are you going to embrace that and going to say, right, I'm going to get my problems over with as best I can so that my life can be as smooth as it can be, or you're going to procrastinate and push everything off. No, I want to keep things smooth and easy, because then the problems down the road will be much harder and much more difficult to deal with. In the end, the choices that we have, bracha and klola, are there for all of us. The question is, are you going to choose the tough path at the early part of your journey so that things may be easier later on? Or are you going to choose the easy path at the early moment and have to contend with much more difficult problems down the line? I think it's a beautiful parable, and one which is very powerful. There's such a wisdom in it, but there it is, based on a verse in the Torah. It's based on a verse in Deuteronomy. It's not something that was dreamt up by some self-help guru and put in a book that's a bestseller on Amazon. It's there in the best-selling book of all time in the Hebrew Scriptures.
Beautiful. Well, Rabbi, it makes me think of one of the sayings of Jesus. It's not exactly the same, but similar, where Jesus talks about, the path of life and the path that leads to eternal life. And he says, broad is the pathway to destruction, right? It's easy to make bad choices that lead to destruction. He says, but narrow is the pathway that leads to life. And so we want to find that narrow pathway, that pathway that receives the blessing of the Lord. Well, folks, I cannot believe it, but our time is slipping away. Rabbi, you have so many fans in our community, and I know you'll have more after tonight. How do people follow you on social media? How do they sign up for your weekly teachings that come out?
It couldn't be easier. And I know Carly's going to hand me a copy of my book as well, so I can show everybody my book if they want to obtain it. And that's very easy as well. It's available on Amazon, my latest book. But if you want to follow me and get regular updates of my screed, of my ramblings, you can do so by going on my website. It's www.rabbidunner.com, RABBIDUNNER.com. And you just scroll down to the bottom of the homepage, and there's a sign up button that you can click on and just fill in your details, and you will be on my mailing list. And I'll be delighted to include you in my regular mailings. Or you can go on to YouTube. I have a YouTube channel, and you can just click on any of the videos, and you can subscribe, press the subscribe button, as Bishop is always telling you on this broadcast. Press the subscribe button, and then you can participate in my regular videos. You'll be notified when they are released. And here is the book. It's Hearts and Minds. It's upside down. Thank you, Carly. Hearts and Minds. It was published earlier this year. We were very, very excited. In fact, we published it in Israel. It had to be shipped here to the United States. It's a beautiful book. It's on every single parsha, every portion of the Hebrew Scriptures, of the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, from Genesis through to Deuteronomy. All articles are relevant to some aspect of life that we are familiar with, whether it's a news story or it's a scientific discovery or it's some historical anecdote. Every one of the pieces, there's 160 articles in here. Every one of them is relevant to you in some way, shape, or form. It's all beautifully indexed, and it was published earlier this year. It's available on Amazon.com, or you can call up my office, 310-276-7650, and we have copies here in the office as well. And Bishop, I'm so grateful to you for giving me the opportunity of sharing my Torah with the widest possible audience. There's nothing I enjoy more than sharing Divrei Torah, words of Torah, with an audience. And you think I'm doing you the favor. In fact, you are doing me the favor. I am so grateful to you that I can share Divrei Torah with your viewers and your listeners and your ministry.
Well, my dear brother, you are in my heart so deeply, and I know that Hashem has united us for a special purpose. And, I couldn't help but thinking as you held your book that, how perfectly symbolic of what it is that you do. You take hearts and minds that are upside down and you turn them right side up. And that's what you do every day with your extraordinary leadership. And you should know that every year we have a tradition every year I send a special gift to about 100 pastors across the country that I'm in close relationship with, pastors who are dear friends and leaders across the nation. And I made the decision that the gift I'm sending this year is your book. So
Wow.
we're sending that to I'll send it out to about 100 leaders. It'll go out in about 3 or 4 weeks from now. And it's a delightful book. And especially for all of the Eagles Wings family who are being accustomed now to weekly study of the portion of the week, what this is Rabbi's commentary on every portion of the week. And sometimes it's humorous and sometimes it's historic, but it always has depth and significance, and it'll be a great blessing. Oh, your beautiful wife is with us here, Rabbi, your beautiful wife, Sabine.
Thank you.
Who makes
we were separated for a few weeks. Although we were together in Israel, she went to London. I joined her in London for a family wedding. Then I flew back, and she only came back earlier this week. And we're looking forward to hosting you for your next visit here in Los Angeles, together with your lovely sons. We can't wait to see you, and it'd be wonderful to have you again for a Friday night dinner.
Well, we look forward to it. And literally today we were looking at the calendar, and we were checking with Wendy on flights, and we were saying, no, that flight can't work because we've got to get to LA by Shabbat. So we absolutely cannot wait to see you. All right, everybody. Tomorrow night we'll go live at 6 p.m. for the Shabbat Brachot, a quick little 5-10 minute blessing to welcome the Sabbath, because we are moving in Jerusalem-centered Christianity. This is the lifestyle of Jesus, the Apostle Paul, the early apostles. They understood the Hagim, the holidays, Shavuot, Sukkot, Pesach. They understood the importance of Shabbat. They understood when Paul says, study the scriptures, what scriptures was he talking about? He wasn't talking about 1 Thessalonians, folks. He was talking about the Torah. And so this is the faith construct of Jesus, Paul, the early church. You say, are you converting to Judaism? No, we are not converting to Judaism, but we are saying that modern American Western Christianity has converted to something other than biblical Christianity. And so we are getting replanted in the roots of our faith. Our faith came from a consecrated people, a consecrated book, and a consecrated land. The Jews, the Torah, and the land of Eretz Israel are the soil of our faith. They are the bedrock, the foundation of our belief system. And we are living in the generation where that root and branch are coming together. And tonight has been yet another step in that glorious unfolding of this prophetic moment in which we find ourselves. And Rabbi Dunner, we are so honored to walk this journey, my brother, with you.
Thank you. And we will continue to walk together, hand in hand, as we head towards Jerusalem, to the Temple Mount, and to the Messianic era.
Amen.
We look forward to it happening speedily and in our days.
Bizrat Hashem. Everybody, God bless you. Thank you for tuning in. And remember, keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem. Good night, everybody.